Can one letter of the alphabet change your entire life? Paul Miller thinks so. Every now and then, God sends a book across my path that is exactly what I need at that particular moment in time. And that was certainly the case with the book I'm going to be sharing with you today. Welcome back to the channel. This is another book bite for you today, where I try to summarize, bring out some main points of a book in about 10 minutes or so, and hopefully convince you to read a good book. And today the book we're talking about is this one right here, J-Curve by Paul E. Miller. The subtitle is Dying and Rising with Jesus in Everyday Life. As I said, this was a book that I needed recently, and if you saw my book haul video, this was one that I picked up a couple months back, and picked it up and read it pretty soon because it seemed to, just from the title, seemed to speak to what I needed to hear, and it was exactly what I needed to hear at that point in time. So I'm thankful for Paul Miller's writing in this book. I'm thankful for the concept that he develops, which we'll get to in a minute, and I'm thankful for how God has used this in my own life, in my own walk with the Lord. First of all, to get into this book a bit, it's got a beautiful orange cover. I'm somewhat partial to orange. I just think it looks nice. But beyond just the cover, Paul Miller's talking about a rich subject. Basically, what this book is discussing practical applications of the doctrine of union with Christ, union with Jesus, being united to Jesus. If you've read through any of the New Testament, any of the Apostle Paul's letters, perhaps you know that the language of in Jesus, you're in Christ, is one of his most common phrases, one of his most common sayings. And Paul Miller really wants to develop that idea in this book, and what does it look like in practical living. And for starters, he is qualified to talk about this. He begins the book with a story about him and his daughter who suffers from a disability and is in need of a lot of care. And in one of the appendixes of the book, he has a discussion, or he talks about a discussion he had with his daughter, another daughter who later died of cancer. So Paul Miller knows what it is to suffer. He knows what it is to experience hardships in life. And so his talking about how do we deal with these moments where we're dying, as it were, where we're dying with Christ, we're going through difficult things. They come across as very authentic, because if you read the beginning and the end, you know he's not coming from a place of never having gone through anything hard. He's speaking about very real things in his life, things that he's learned. And that gives, as I said, authenticity to the book. It makes it believable. It's something that you read and you can say, man, I can sit and learn from this author because I know he's experienced hard things. It's a beautiful thing about this book. It's incredibly gospel-centered. He goes over and over again to the cross and to the resurrection. And he talks about Jesus' death and what that means for us, but also resurrection. That's a very encouraging thing in this book. He leaves with resurrection. That no matter what you go through in terms of suffering, in terms of dying in that sense, there's always resurrection for the person who has their hope in Jesus Christ. And that was hopeful for me. It was very encouraging for me as I was reading this book and going through a bit of a difficult time, to be reminded of Jesus understands suffering. He suffered more than I ever have, more than I ever will, but he also rose again. And we're also joined to Jesus in his rising. So it comes across very authentic. It comes across very hopeful because resurrection is there. It's enjoyable to read. Paul Miller's a good writer. He's digging. He has the ability in this book to take a complex and very mysterious doctrinal concept of union with Christ and speak about it in a way that's very understandable, very relatable, very practical. That's a huge benefit of this book. It's not a dry theological tome. It's a sizable book. It's just over 300 pages, but it's very readable. I'm a bit of a slower reader, and I got through it pretty quick. He writes with a very much a storytelling style, and he fills the book with stories, just from his own life, his own experiences, his own learning, which in the one sense is very helpful because you get these real life experiences. Those are the three things I really enjoyed about this book. A few things that I maybe wasn't the biggest fan of, and I don't want this to take away from just the rich content and just the impact this had on me. But a few things that I felt a little meh about are, one, the title, J-Curve, comes across a bit gimmicky throughout the book. He keeps going back to when I learned the J-Curve, and I had to learn the J-Curve, and it kind of makes this concept of dying and rising with Christ feel a little gimmicky as he's writing and he's telling these stories. And I know he no doubt is not meaning to do this, but just the way he kind of writes and develops it, it felt a little gimmicky. It's the best word I can think of to describe it. Some of his stories feel a little forced as he's trying to illustrate some points. He has incredibly rich stories, like I said, of talking about dealing with his daughter's disability and all of her needs. Sharing about this conversation he had with another one of his daughters who died from cancer. Those are very rich, very powerful stories where he's not trying to explain anything. And I should say that's another thing I appreciated about it. He's getting at how we're shaped through suffering, how suffering and then rising with Christ, this dying and rising with Christ is meant to make us more like Jesus. And I really appreciate that about it. Some other stories, however, kind of feel a little forced, not far-fetched. That's not the word I'm looking for. But a story, for example, of and he's trying to get at that this is dying and rising with Christ, his everyday experiences, but a story of going out in a snowstorm to make sure that the family sheep is okay. Or another story of another one of his daughters not being able to play in a field hockey game, being benched by the coach. That, I mean, you can get where he's coming from, but compared to some of the other stories he tells that I've related already, it feels a little bit cheap, far-fetched, a little forced in making the analogies. But overall, in the main, this is a book I would highly recommend. Highly recommend as very readable. It might be branded theology/Christian living because it really deals with both, but theology in a very digestible way, a very applicable way. It blessed my soul and just helped me wrestle through what I was experiencing. And again, a reminder that we don't necessarily know why God is allowing things to happen in our lives, but that he will use it. And that was an important reminder that I needed at the time I read it. Very readable, a very important subject matter, union with Christ, what that means in our day-to-day life. And so if you're looking for a good book to read, to encourage you in your faith, to maybe encourage you in a time where you're going through something difficult, I would highly recommend that you pick up and read J-Curve by Paul E. Miller. Thanks for watching another book bite on my channel here. If you like this, there's more that you can find on my channel. You can hit the subscribe button, and there's another video that you can watch that's just to one of your sides here. So thanks again, and have a great day.